Yo, people, welcome back to another stream. Yeah, so today, if this is the third stream of the day, or no, the third, if you, yeah, the third stream of the day, where we have
I think you're frozen, Hanno. Anyway, good to see all of you. We will be speaking about the upcoming T20 Cricket World Cup, the knockout rounds for the last four teams in the 12-man tournament have just been concluded, and we will be speaking about those matches and also previewing the tournament proper and talking about the other teams in question. Should be very exciting. And it looks as though Hanno has gone out and he might be coming back in. So once again, thank you all for joining in. And it's really fun to do another stream on the sport, which both Hanno and I'm sure Hanno enjoys watching his cricket. It's quite big in South Africa. And of course, being born and brought up in England, it is, of course, our national summer game. And here in India, it is literally a religion. So yeah, it's good to talk about that. And obviously, both England and India will be looking to set the record straight with regard to their own chances in this tournament. Both of those teams, of course, are coming in to the tournament in decent form, and we will be previewing every single team as it goes on. So should be quite exciting. And we may also be able to bring you watch-alongs for a few of the games. And yeah, I mean, obviously, if it's going to be a challenge to do a watch along, but the beauty of T20 cricket is that that really is the sort of game which is meant for TV viewing in a way, and it'll certainly be a nice change from having to do a watch along for a 50 over game. I mean, I don't know if anyone can do that, and as far as 5-day cricket is concerned, internationally, that won't happen either. So obviously, with regard to the other qualifiers, which have just been played, we've seen some teams make the cut as expected. Some teams didn't make the cut as unexpected. And it just goes to show that even among smaller teams and teams which ended up dropping into those places based on their ranking, it just goes to show that reputation means nothing. And let it not be said that these games in question do not possess any kind of emotion or drama. You see a lot in these games, especially with a lot of associate teams capable of producing some very, very high quality performances. And we'll be looking to discuss some of that. Obviously, Hanno will be eager to follow the fortunes of his native South Africa and some of the other African teams in the tournament. As for me, I'll be looking at England and any British teams, teams from the British Isles who've qualified. And certainly when T20 was created, it was actually created in England, but it became popular around the world. And certainly it's taken many countries by storm. India obviously wanted to come into the they obviously wanted to make sure that they had a bigger piece of the pie when it came to T20 cricket, and other countries have followed suit. Australia with the Big Bash, Pakistan, of course, with the PSL. They often would play their matches in the UAE at several cricket stadiums around that country, be it in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, and all those places. And of course, in New Zealand, it's quite big. South Africa have recently started a T20 tournament. And it's certainly something to look forward to. It looks like Hanno's back. Hanno, hopefully things are okay on your end. Is your connection all right?
man, you won't believe it, but my Wi-Fi just crashed. I quickly just went to my data. So yeah, either we should maybe just record a video, or it's up to you if you just want to do it alone, and I can just give my insight in the chat. Up to you.
I mean, it'll be up to you because obviously it's your channel, and I don't want to, do
No,
anything inconvenient to you. I mean, now that
no,
we're
no.
live, now that we're live, I mean, I actually have a preview page here from BBC Sports, so we can share that and talk about that, and obviously give you details, and we can be done in about half an hour
Uh, yeah.
or less than that.
Um, I'm. I don't know how long the Wi-Fi is going to be off. To be honest, I don't know. So, um, maybe you just preview it, and I'll just give my insight in the chat.
Okay, but before I do that, let me just we'll just talk about the qualifiers for the last four places, the 9 to 12 positions, because as you know, we were talking
Yeah.
about the groups earlier on. That was the last stream we did. Obviously, we had one group with the West Indies, Scotland, um, also the Netherlands and Namibia. And obviously, no, Namibia were against South Africa. I remember it was the West Indies, Scotland, Ireland, and Zimbabwe. And I know that as a South African, you were very eager to see Zimbabwe qualify, and these round of matches really provide some high quality matches. Obviously, we'll start talking about the West Indies. Two-time champions, they came in with a reputation, but just goes to show that when you have such a low ranking, and you have to go into these qualifiers, if you will, or these knockout rounds playoffs rather, reputations don't mean anything. And I think it's fair to say that that West Indies team clearly looked undercooked and were probably not good value for even qualifying from that from their playoffs. Certainly, the losses to Scotland and Ireland proved that. What do you think of the West Indian team?
I think that's a real disappointment for West Indies, especially if you look look the history of them and everything, and they're not a bad side, so it's definitely a big disappointment for them. And yeah, big up Zimbabwe. Don't really expect them to make the Super 12. Oh, so big up to them. And yeah, the Netherlands also made really shocked that not shocked, but yeah, they made it. And then of course Ireland also made it. Um, and yeah, Ireland made it ahead of Scotland, which is a bit of a surprise. Nice. But yeah.
Yeah.
And who was the other team that to join Zimbabwe in that Group B?
Ireland joined them, I believe. No, 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 no. Yeah, it was Ireland because I remember
Okay.
Ireland.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Ireland beat the West Indies and they beat Scotland, but lost to Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe beat Scotland as well, but they lost to the West Indies. So, yeah. So obviously Zimbabwe recovered well. The only problem is that they seem to be relying too much on Craig Irvine, their captain, and Sikandar Raza, their in-form Pakistani-born all-rounder. Raza has obviously been the star in those games, but it'll be interesting to see how well he performs. And Irvine will also be key, as will a few other players like Brad Evans and Ryan Bull. Evans is also the son of Craig Evans, who was a former Zimbabwe bowler. And yes, it'll be interesting to see how well Zimbabwe do. They could pull off a bit of a shock, but I think the greater likelihood is that the stronger teams in their group will probably be a little bit too strong for them. And Ireland as well. Yeah, they played out of their skins to beat Scotland when all hope looked lost. And then, of course, their win over the West Indies was an absolute classic. So both teams could shock one of the bigger teams on their day, but it'll remain to be seen what will happen. I was very surprised that Sri Lanka made heavy weather of it, and obviously their loss to Namibia really hurt them. And of course, the UAE promised a great deal, but just fell short against the Netherlands. But that win against Namibia and seeing David Visa, in tears at the end, former South African international, as you know, let it not be said that these games lacked any kind of emotion. So, are you excited for these four teams going in? And do you think that which of these four teams do you think can actually have the best results quickly? And then I'll let you leave.
Um, I think definitely I'm really excited to see what they do. But I think, as expected, I think Sri Lanka will be the best out of them and will be surprise package.
Yeah. Netherlands also do have a strong cricketing heritage. Bastian de Leyde, his father also played one-day cricket for the Netherlands, was also a part of their 96 World Cup team, which played in Pakistan, India, and Sri Lanka. So they also have a strong cricketing heritage, and it's probably no surprise that they're through. But for these coming events, especially given the short, fast nature of 2020 cricket, I wouldn't be surprised if more and more shock results like this come and more unheralded teams come to the fore. And seeing Afghanistan qualifying as one of the top 8 teams, I think it's a real shot in the arm for them. So I will be previewing them and a few other teams as we go along. So thanks a lot for coming on. And if you have to leave and leave me to do this, that's not a problem. But once again, I will make sure that I big you up. And thank you very much indeed for having me on.
Yeah, and I will send you my predictions on Twitter. I will just send them my predictions. Yeah, round one ends on Monday, so you can stop after the South African Zimbabwe game. Then after that game, then it's in. So I'll just send you the predictions I have for those games.
Okay, then. Okay, I'm looking forward to that. So thank you
Yeah,
very much
no
indeed,
problem.
Hanno. And yeah, thank you very much indeed again. And I will look to talk to you again very soon. So now we're going to go into the tournament proper, and I am also going to share with you right now a preview of the tournament in question. But I will now just once again thank God for Wikipedia. We are able to confirm quite a few results and also share with you a few things. So if you see right now, this is the playoffs basically for the last 4 teams in the Super 12. Sri Lanka, of course, got off to a very bad start against Namibia, but recovered well against the UAE, crushing them by 79 runs and ending their challenge. And of course, um, a somewhat fairly routine win. Don't let the margin fool you. In 2020 cricket, 20 cricket, a margin of 10 runs or more is actually a fairly good win. And of course, the UAE Namibia game, Namibia could have qualified for the Super 12s themselves, but lost to the UAE. Certainly an example of the exciting nature of the game and how unheralded teams can have their day. And of course, special mention to the UAE and the Netherlands for their game. They actually could have had a chance of winning it when Junaid Siddiqui was bowling really well. He had 2 wickets in an over, could have had 3, only for the UAE captain CP Rizwan to drop a catch, and that pretty much gave the Netherlands the confidence they needed to get back into the game. But some good matches there, and obviously Sri Lanka and the Netherlands ending up, um, finishing with the better record. Namibia had the better run rate, but just couldn't quite get over the line. But a lot of positives to take for Namibia and the UAE going forward, and hopefully they will come back stronger. And then, of course, we have Group B with Zimbabwe, Ireland, Scotland, and the West Indies. The West Indies, of course, 2-time former champions, but who made very heavy weather of their campaign, and of course, had a very disastrous start themselves with a loss to Scotland. Um, Jason Holder probably being their best player in terms of all-round contribution, but an all-round contribution, 38 of 33 and 2 for 14, but nobody really able to get into the groove, and it just wasn't really their day. And Zimbabwe making fairly simple work of Ireland there. Some Of course, Sikandar Raza starring with that brilliant innings of 82, and uh, and then of course their really tall bowler Blessing Muzarabani with 3 wickets off four overs. So he will be one to watch, definitely. And Scotland and Ireland playing a very feisty clash. Scotland dominated Ireland and very nearly could have sent Ireland packing, only for Curtis Campher and George Dockrell to pull the chestnuts out of the fire and take Ireland home by 6 wickets with an over to spare. And of course, the West Indies gave themselves some hope by beating Zimbabwe. And, that was a fairly handy victory. And it looked as though they would get back into their groove after all. 4 wickets for Alzari Joseph. Raza again starring for Zimbabwe with 3 wickets for 19. But again, in the final round of matches, West Indies just crumbled under the pressure, and Ireland completely blew them away with a fine innings of 66 from Paul Stirling and several other batsmen, contributing and taking them home. And Scotland and Zimbabwe also played another match, another winner-takes-all clash, and Zimbabwe's experience ended up getting them over the line with captain Craig Irvine's half-century. So now we come to the Super 12. We basically see right now that these are the teams, the top 8 teams from the previous tournament were sorted by ICC ranking. So we saw Afghanistan in the mix based on their performance in the previous tournament. And of course, from the first round, we saw Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe, the Netherlands, and Ireland going through. Obviously, no West Indies, and that will be something that they will really have to look at in terms of how they performed and how they will go forward. So this is what Group 1 looks like. Afghanistan, Australia, England, Ireland, New Zealand, and Sri Lanka. On the face of it, a somewhat easy sounding group for Australia and England and New Zealand. But let it not be said that Sri Lanka will not give other teams a fight. And of course, Ireland are very capable of pulling off a shock result. I do remember their exploits in the 2007 World Cup that was held in the West Indies, and also in 2011 when they beat Ireland memorably with a terrific century from Kevin O'Brien. So I will preview some of these teams right now, and I will go to this page from BBC Sport. So, of course, Afghanistan, Australia, England, New Zealand, Sri Lanka, and Ireland are in Group 1. And Group 2 will see Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, the other 3 Asian superstars in that group. The Pakistan-India clash will obviously be epic. And then, of course, South Africa and Zimbabwe will be proudly representing the African contingent, with European representation coming from the Netherlands. So you see England over here. Currently, they are ranked 2nd in the world, and they arrive in the tournament in some really, really good form. Their most recent form, of course, is 4 straight wins, including a series win in Australia. And, of course, they had a tough series win in Pakistan where they beat them 4-3. Moeen Ali, obviously, of Pakistani heritage, captaining the side and doing a pretty good job over there with his team. So, power, skill, and pace. On paper, England do have it all. And that series win in Pakistan boosted their hopes after a somewhat difficult year in white ball cricket. And they were the world's dominant limited overs team for the past 4 years, especially since the brilliant 2019 World Cup win in one-day internationals. But this summer, they've been beaten by both India and South Africa. And obviously, those teams are trying to play catch up. And the era begins rather slowly, but with a strong batting lineup, bowling lineup. Obviously, Joss Buttler, their captain, the best white ball batsman in the world, even if his test career might very well be over. Mark Wood is obviously one of their leading pace bowlers, and he returned from an elbow injury in Pakistan. Clocking speeds of up to 97 miles an hour, which could prove to be very crucial in Australia, of course. And as with any other fast bowler, his fitness will be quite important, which segues, of course, into the fact that the England team will be without Reece Topley, who had to withdraw on the eve of the tournament, and he has been England's form 2020 bowler this year. It is a bit of a blow. The batting, of course, will be bolstered by the emergence of Harry Brook, 23 years of age. And, of course, there is England's Test captain, Ben Stokes, who will be playing 2020 cricket, and of course, it will be back in the 2020 side. Probably shouldn't be sharing that. So, yep, that's all I need for now. So, according to the experts, England are predicted to obviously qualify comfortably from their group and finish as runners up. And of course, if we take a look at the format, the knockout stage will see the top two teams in each group go straight into the semi-finals, with the final to be played later on. And England, of course, will be opening their campaign against Afghanistan on the 22nd of November. That will be an evening game from the looks of it, with with the tournament taking place in Australia. All times will be in Australian time, but it will be probably afternoon at about 2:30 over here in India, and of course in the morning in Australia, in England rather, it will be at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock in the African continent, or the Central Equatorial Time. So they will open their campaign against Afghanistan, continue with the match against Ireland. The real crunch match will be on the 28th of October when they play Australia. That will obviously go some way to determining who would qualify from the group. And then, of course, England are coming up against New Zealand on the 1st of November. Their final game will be against Sri Lanka on the 5th of November. And that will be very key because as we talk about Sri Lanka later on, their array of spinners will obviously prove to be key. Now, Australia, the host country. They are, of course, the defending champions and are predicted to win this year, with home advantage helping them. But will it help them? Of course, they are among the favourites and, of course, lost that recent series to England, but they still have a very vaunted attack. Aaron Finch, of course, will be captaining this team, and he has already stepped down as ODI captain. I do not know if he will continue to lead the 2020 team, but in all probability he might. We will see. And they ended up, of course, under his leadership going all the way in last year's World Cup. Their strength, of course, will be their bowling attack, with world number one Josh Hazlewood, Pat Cummins, and Mitchell Starc among their arsenal, and that will be, of course, quite fearsome. And then, of course, from their on their batting side, you cannot look beyond David Warner, Glenn Maxwell, and Matthew Wade. Wade, of course, being one of the form finishers around. Memories, of course, of the legendary Michael Bevan come to mind, and of course, took Australia to victory over Pakistan in last year's semi-final. 3 consecutive sixes in that penultimate over. They also have a new addition to their squad, Tim David, who used to play for Singapore, but who has now been recently added to the team, and he will be a surprise pick for their team. So Mitchell Starc, David Warner, and Tim David are key for them. And of course, for England, I forgot to mention the spin of Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali will also prove key on these Australian pitches. Now to New Zealand, the third strong team in what is expected to be a 3-horse race for the top 2 positions in the group. They were runners-up in the last competition, and their form has also been pretty good. Just in their last 4 games, they won 3, but of course, coming into the tournament on the back of a loss, and they have played a few warm-up games as well. Now, very few have been talking up their chances, but New Zealand traditionally has been a team that goes into tournaments unheralded, and very few expect them to do very well or go far, but they end up invariably going quite far. And obviously, over the years, especially recent years, they produced some really fine players. One of whom, of course, Brendan McCullum, who doesn't play anymore for New Zealand, is now managing England's Test team. So that is definitely ironic. But under Kane Williamson, they do have a really good squad. Of course, Ross Taylor is no longer involved with them. But Tim Southey and Trent Boult, fast bowlers, both of them. And Trent Boult is an interesting one because he had made a decision to be released from his New Zealand contract, but obviously has been picked for this tournament for his ability. So it will be interesting to see what his involvement will be with New Zealand cricket going forward after this tournament. And of course, Yeah, in terms of bowlers, they've got Lockie Ferguson, who will provide some extra firepower. Also, Adam Milne, and with the bat, Glenn Phillips is still is also a fine player, very in form, and certainly can play a role. There probably might be a feeling that with the likes of Williamson and Southey, also getting on in age, that they could perhaps be coming to the end of the cycle. But I'm pretty sure that given how cricket has taken off in New Zealand with the way results have been going in all formats, there will be no shortage of talented players who will be coming into the picture. And it is predicted, of course, that they will. They probably might not qualify from the Super 12, but they should be there in there or thereabouts. In fact, it'll be England and Australia who are predicted to qualify from that group, but New Zealand could still spring a surprise. Nothing is guaranteed. Let's see if there's anything in the chat. I see KFC deliveries come in. Yeah, been a shocking one so far. According to the Melbourne weather forecast, apparently Pakistan versus India may very well be cancelled. I will look into that. Of course, rain has been forecast on more than a few game days, and quite a few of the game days were affected by rain for some part. But we should see the showers being a lot more intermittent as the tournament goes on. I see Craig Malloy's in the chat. Craig AFC, good to see you, mate. Brian Lara, your all-time favourite, very stylish batsman. And I think it's fair to say that had Lara been around today, 2020 cricket would potentially have suited him. I mean, he was obviously a lot more of a stylish player who'd hit along the ground, but he also knew how to hit over the top. And I'm sure he would have enjoyed playing 2020 cricket. And of course, maybe he has time now to play some Legends cricket, given his advanced age and the fact that his international days, of course, are long done and dusted. Now, let's take a look at Sri Lanka in this group. They are currently ranked 8th in the world and faced a bit of a spot of bother to qualify for the Super 12s, but here they are. And of course, their recent form going into the qualifiers, the playoffs rather, was actually good, where they had 5 straight wins, but then they suffered that shock result against Namibia and had to really make sure that they took it seriously and won their last 2 games against the UAE and the Netherlands. And they shocked everyone actually in September by beating both India and Pakistan to win the Asia Cup. And of course, they are coached by former England coach Chris Silverwood, who was coach of the England team during that debacle down under in the Ashes, which prompted a lot more changes to be made. And of course, with Brendan McCullum coming in, certainly the approach has changed, and with Joe Root not captaining the Test team anymore, Ben Stokes having that all to himself certainly prompted a change in fortunes. But it is good to see Silverwood getting some more coaching experience and doing well elsewhere. Maybe with some more experience, he could come back to the England setup as a more improved and experienced coach, but that will remain to be seen. Now, they are, of course, led by Dasun Shanaka, who is a middle order batsman, and he will be expected to be a calming influence in the middle of the batting order, although he wasn't exactly really up to par during the playoffs. But in the end, I think he did enough to help them get over. I mean, he did actually top score in the defeat to Namibia, but nothing really to shout about otherwise. And of course, Wanindu Hasaranga could claim to be the best leg spinner in the world right now. Currently, their standout player and has been in top form. And they also have Bhanuka Rajapaksha, who hit 71 not out in the Asia Cup final against Pakistan. Another middle order batsman who could definitely provide some ballast. And their opening batsman, Nisanka, hit a crucial 74 against the UAE, which helped prevent them from making an unceremonious early exit. So Sri Lanka as well have a good history in 2020 cricket. They've made made 1 or 2 finals, of course, and I believe they've won the competition once, if I'm not wrong. And they've also suffered an injury withdrawal with Dushmanta Chamira, their fast bowler, having been ruled out with a calf injury. And obviously, that absence means that their pace bowling arsenal, which over the years has been of really good quality, of course, now with Lassit Malinga no longer there, it might be, not as heralded. And certainly without Shamira, it will be certainly lacking in a little bit of threat. But it will be interesting to see how they go about things, and their spin attack will prove to be very key. They are not expected to go too far, but they could potentially give England and a few other teams some trouble with their spin attack. Their batting might look a little bit weak, so they could easily be attacked on that front. And of course, the one of the shock teams in the group, Afghanistan, they didn't have to go through the qualifying playoffs, and for the second year in a row, they've qualified directly for the main phase of this tournament, but they haven't really been able to achieve a statement win as of yet. And of course, there are a few stalwarts in their team. Their captain, Mohammad Nabi, is 37 years old. The squad definitely looks a bit different from squads gone by. Rahmanullah Gurbaz is their in-form batsman and wicketkeeper, and he will be expected to do well as he did in the Asian Cup. And in that Asian Cup as well, they beat winners Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and had a one-wicket loss to Pakistan. So obviously that tournament helped them get a bit of standing prior to qualifying for the tournament proper. And of course, among their bowlers, Rashid Khan is still their talisman, their star player, and he will be backed up by two more quality spinners in Mujibur Rahman and Qais Ahmed, with Rashid being the most successful overseas bowler in the history of the Australian Big Bash 2020 competition. So he will be an asset, knowing the conditions of the pitch as well. And Australia, of course, offers a wide variety of pitches. Some of them will be fast, some of them might offer assistance for spin. They do promise, of course, really good competition for these games. So it'll be really interesting to see how well they do. And of course, the other team in that group will be Ireland. Always a feisty clash whenever England play Ireland. And of course, Ireland benefit by having many of their players over the years play in English county cricket. And of course, they are a first class team by themselves, but they also not too recently achieved test status on the back of their impressive performances in limited overs cricket. So the game has developed quite brilliantly in Ireland. They will be led, of course, by captain Andrew Balbirnie, and their star players obviously will be all-rounder Curtis Camphor, who starred in that miraculous win over Scotland, which helped them avoid an early exit. And of course, that 72 came from just 32 balls, and also can bowl some pretty good fast medium, some pretty good seam rather. And of course, Paul Stirling needs no introduction. He's been very active in the county circuit, and of course will be expected to provide that energy at the top of the order. And of course, many of us cricket fans will remember Ireland from years gone by, with the likes of Trent Johnston and William Porterfield having been very big contributors. Boyd Rankin as well. Quite a few of them have gone on to play for England. I'm thinking of obviously the likes of Ed Joyce and Rankin and one or two others, but Joyce, of course, did return to play for Ireland. And England, obviously, Ireland do have a very rich cricketing history, and they will be expected to give a good account of themselves. Maybe they could shock a team in this tournament. Who knows? But again, of course, another of their potential stars will be 22-year-old left arm seamer Josh Little. He made his debut age 16 for the Irish team, and this year in England's the 100 competition took 5 for 13, the tournament's best figures to date. So he will obviously be looking to make an impression on these Australian pitches. It'll be interesting to see how well he does. Maintaining a consistent line and length will be key. And so with that, we've discussed Group A, or Group 1 rather. And of course, we will take a look now at the fixtures of the group, and which fixtures will also certainly be key. So, So the group kicks off, of course, on the 22nd of October with Australia playing New Zealand, Afghanistan playing England, and Ireland playing Sri Lanka. it is really hard to predict what might happen. I just think Australia, with their firepower, should be more than a match for New Zealand. England, Afghanistan could very well end up being a mismatch, unless, of course, England's batsmen take Afghanistan's spin, very lightly and not treated with the respect it deserves. And of course, Sri Lanka and Ireland will be a very interesting clash. Obviously, Sri Lanka's spin bowlers against Ireland's batsmen. How Ireland's batsmen will account for that will be very interesting. And we will take some predictions maybe later on. I will see what Hanno says about all of this. Anyone else in the chat? Yeah, Coach's Corner is going for an Aussie win, obviously. And I think you're probably predicting that Australia might win the tournament. So, KFC Delivery, thanks a lot for staying on. Yep. And you're going for a New Zealand win, which might be interesting. We will see how that goes. I mean, obviously, Australia and New Zealand clashes are very, feisty, and New Zealand could also go on to qualify for the semis and maybe win the tournament. But this could very well prove to be a very tight tournament indeed, and it will be interesting to see how things pan out in this group stage. Then, of course, on the 25th, the 23rd of October is, of course, when Ireland and Sri Lanka play. So we just have two games on the 22nd of October. And these matches, the first two will be played in Sydney and Perth. The third one between Sri Lanka and Ireland will be at the Bellerive Oval in Hobart. So you can see all of these venues right here. Melbourne has 4 consecutive games, with all those games being played on the 26th and the 28th of October. Obviously, one in the afternoon Australia time, and the other one being at 7 o'clock in the evening Australia time. And so we might possibly, as I've said, look to do a few watch-alongs for some of the games. Obviously, the earlier games might not be possible, given that it will be a little bit too early for people living in the UK and in South Africa. But certainly the evening games in Australia will be a possibility. I will look to hopefully get all of that done for you. So, and obviously Hanno will look to do some of that. As I've said, the key crunch game on the 28th will be Australia against England. And of course, England play New Zealand on the 1st of November. It's going to be hard to look beyond Australia and England for me, because they are the two informed teams in this group. But New Zealand and Sri Lanka are capable of beating anyone. Of course, they have rich histories. And let's not discount Afghanistan and Ireland from pulling off some shocks. So any more predictions, please let them come in the chat. New Zealand did knock out England last year en route to the final. You're absolutely right, KFC Delivery. And agreed, they could still do well. Not too sure that they will do well this time around, because obviously the likes of Williamson, Bolt, and Southey are getting a little bit. And of course, as I mentioned, they might be coming to the end of a cycle. Whereas with England and Australia, they still have a good blend of informed, experienced players and some exciting young talent coming in. And I'll be coming to Group 2, because yes, we will be discussing South Africa. So thanks a lot for reminding me. And yeah. Just occurred to me that I have been going back and forth between the YouTube video to check the chat. So if all of you have been seeing that, I do apologize for that. Now, of course, we have Group 2, which features Bangladesh, India, the Netherlands, Pakistan, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. Obviously, things are going to kick off on the 23rd with the India-Pakistan clash. That will be an evening clash at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. And that is, of course, going to be something to savor for even the cricket neutral. For me, obviously, the Australia-England clash will be key. And this India-Pakistan match will be key as well, because India, of course, are the currently, in terms of form and ranking, the best team in the world right now. But they will be up against Pakistan, and even Bangladesh are capable of a few surprises. And let's not, of course, discount South Africa and Zimbabwe. Let's take a look now at these teams in the group. Starting, of course, with Bangladesh, who are 9th in the world. And their recent form has not been good at all. 4 consecutive losses, with 2 wins prior to that, then 3 consecutive losses and a win. It hasn't exactly been plain sailing for them, and they've, struggled at the best of times, but they're often the team, as we all know, which is capable of getting their act together on the big stage when it matters. And of course, the captain, Shakib Al Hassan, he's been around the block for a long time, one of the world's best all rounders. And another big name will be left arm seamer Mustafiz Rahman. It might be hard to see them necessarily being competitive, but you just never know what can happen. And certainly, the beauty of 2020 cricket is that any team can have its day. So Shakib will be juggling the captaincy with his left arm spin and stylish and aggressive batting. And as for Mustafizur, he will look to bring his arsenal of variations and tricks to the party and see how well he does. And obviously, with a left arm seamer, you know, teams will have a really good weapon in their arsenal. I believe Australia, of course, have Mitchell Starc, and I'm sure they might have one other one. We will take a look at them as we provide more analysis in the coming days. Now, in the Asian Cup, when Bangladesh played, they didn't win a match, and they've also lost series to Zimbabwe and the West Indies this year. And several experienced players, like former captain Mohammad Mahmudullah, are not featuring right now. He's been left out of the squad. And Mushfiqur Rahim, another former skipper, has also retired from T20 internationals. So this will almost certainly be a young team with a few experienced players. And it might not be possible to see them necessarily being competitive, but any fan will know that Bangladesh are not a team to be taken lightly. Of course, as an England fan, I remember our shameful loss to Bangladesh in the 2015 World Cup, which saw us knocked out of the tournament very early, and we couldn't even qualify for the Super 8s. So in 2020, they will be a tricky proposition. And of course, as long as they have Shakib Al Hassan, anything is possible. Then, of course, we come to Hannah's neck of the woods, South Africa. And their form has been a little bit, I wouldn't say hit and miss, but certainly a few losses dotting the wins. Their last 7 games have seen them win 4, then have 2 losses, and then finally a win. So the warm-up games haven't necessarily been kind to them. And of course, given that they didn't have to qualify, they obviously played a few warm-up games. And they are rated dark horses in this tournament and could very well qualify for the semi-finals. Although sadly, as we all know, whenever it comes to winning an ICC tournament, with the exception of the ICC trophy in 1998, South Africa have not really been able to get their act together in terms of winning the big tournaments. But maybe this time around, this could be their year. Who knows? And going back to that, of course, they beat England in the UK last summer, which is very impressive. And obviously, as players, they have a lot of, as a team, they have a lot of talented players in their squad. Some terrific seamers, Anrich Notye and Kagiso Rabada, 2 of the quickest fast bowlers around. And they have a good wrist spinner in Tabrez Shamsi. We also cannot allow ourselves to forget the canny left arm spin of Keshav Maharaj, who has captained the team on a few occasions. And of course, Quinton de Kock should still be in the team, who will add some experience, having, of course, captained South Africa before. Riley Russo and David Miller have hit T20 hundreds this month against India. And of course, Tristan Stubbs, already known to England fans after smashing 72 of 28 in the 100 in Bristol, could very well become a star. The only problem is they have injuries to Rassie van der Dussen and Dwayne Pretorius, which could cripple them. Pretorius, of course, being their all-rounder, and van der Dussen being an important rock in the middle order. And their captain, Temba Bavuma, who is, of course, the limited overs captain for ODIs and T20s, is not really in the best of form. So it will be interesting to see how well he does. Will he come into form in the tournament? But South Africa, of course, are predicted to do quite well. And in a group featuring India and Pakistan, they could end up becoming dark horses and actually qualify at maybe Pakistan's expense. Now, of course, we come to India, whose recent form in their last 6 games has seen them win 4 in succession, only to lose a couple of warm-up games later on. And of course, the big news from them is that their fast bowling sensation, Jasprit Bumrah, has been ruled out of the tournament with a back injury, along with all-rounder Ravindra Jadeja, who has been a star for India in limited overs cricket in years gone by. So the team is now being captained by Rohit Sharma. Former captain Virat Kohli is still an important pivotal player in the team. He had a T20 century in the Asia Cup. Surya Kumar Yadav has come leaps and bounds as a batsman and could provide a lot of thrills with the Willow, and is certainly one of Joss Butler's rivals for being being the best 2020 batsman in the world. And of course, in the format, you take a look at someone like Hardik Pandya, the impact he has on that team with the ball and the bat simply cannot be denied. And of course, Pandya will have a key role to play. And the bowling attack, of course, without Bumrah will be a little bit weakened, but they still have Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, Yuzvendra Chahal, and couple of new faces in Arshdeep Singh and Harshal Patel. So some experience, but maybe a little bit of youth. And obviously, the bowling attack will be key here, because obviously over the years, India have produced some really good quality batsmen. Kohli is, the most recent of the greats, if you will, and Sharma is obviously, trying to get into that bracket again. Yadav could very well have more years ahead of him, and he will certainly join that list if he stays fit and in form. So that will be interesting. And of course, they're predicted to reach the semi-finals, but their clash against Pakistan will prove to be very interesting. And of course, Pakistan need no motivation for that. And in 2021, they couldn't qualify, though, for the semi-finals. They actually exited in the group stage under Kohli's captaincy. So they will look to put that record straight and live up to their number one ranking. And now, of course, we come to Pakistan, who have a rather choppy sequence of form. And their 2021 result was making the semi-finals, which is quite impressive. So will their team be strong enough? It will remain to be seen. And of course, the team is led by Babar Azam. So the clash between him and Rohit Sharma on the 23rd will be definitely epic, and it will be interesting to see how well he performs and how well he leads the team. And along with him, Mohammad Rizwan form a really good opening partnership, capable of winning matches on their own. They had a partnership of 203, which is unbroken in the second match against England in their recent T20 series. So certainly a combination that can be very threatening, certainly one that can take the game away from the opposition. And as long as when they are in form, you can expect a really rollicking start. And another thing which, of course, Pakistan is famous for is producing some quality fast bowlers, because I think it's fair to say that in Pakistan, you learn to bowl before you can actually crawl. And another name to the list of legendary left armers is Shaheen Afridi. Haris Rauf is another really quick bowler who made his name in the Big Bash in Australia. And if Shaheen is fit, as Pakistan will say, that will be a major boost. He had been sidelined with a knee injury of late, but if he has in fact recovered, that can only be of good news to Pakistan's chances. Let me check the chat and see if anyone's come in. Oris Talks Football was in the stream. Big up, son. I'm not too sure you really enjoy cricket that much, but thanks for joining in. Good to see you here. Maybe you can, get a bit of information. I see Ola from the United family is here. Big up to yourself, brother. And once again, my prayers to everyone back in Nigeria. Hope everyone will find, comfort and peace, and the situation will be sorted out soon. I don't know if they play cricket in Nigeria, but it is, of course, very big in Kenya. And Hannah, of course, will know about that. Maybe not. I remember the Kenyan team in 2003, which reached the semi-finals of the World Cup held in South Africa. Really unheralded team, which shocked the world then. Top stuff. And of course, going back to Pakistan, the only problem is, of course, Pakistan may be a little bit dependent on their opening partnership of Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan. So, and if either of them are out early, there may not be too much batting elsewhere. So how they cope with their batting will remain to be seen. And they're not predicted to qualify from the group, but if they beat India on the opening day, they could very well lay down a marker for the rest of their campaign in the group. So Pakistan cannot be taken lightly. Now we come to the Netherlands, who are ranked 17th and who just made it into the Super 12 stage following Namibia's shock loss to the UAE. Don't let anyone tell you that, again, these qualifiers or playoffs lack any kind of thrills or spills or emotion, because believe me, you see plenty of that. And of course, they qualified with Sri Lanka from Group A. Key players include Bastian de Leyde, or Bas de Leyde, whose father Tim de Leyde was an established international for the Dutch and played in their ODI team and in the 1996 World Cup, and also in 2003, if I'm not wrong. I don't quite remember. But Bastien has been their standout player with a good supply of runs and 7 wickets, courtesy of his own right arm seam. And of course, Max O'Dowd, Aussie, hitting 71 not out from 53 balls during the playoffs, and will have a role to play for this side. And interestingly enough, they have a splendid record against England in this competition, having beaten them twice. So England should actually count their blessings that the Netherlands aren't in that group, because memories of those games will certainly come back to haunt them. Happens to everyone. And certainly this team with a strong cricketing heritage going back to the mid 90s, and obviously further back than that, with a few of their players playing in the English county game. It is something to marvel, and it is good to see, obviously, the Netherlands continuing to develop themselves. I do hope that if their performances do improve, they will join the likes of Ireland as a test nation, but that will remain to be seen. In addition to, of course, de Leyde, no doubt, they have the former South African international Roelof van der Merwe, who has been playing for the Netherlands for the past few years. He provides, of course, some good quality left-arm wrist spin and is a right-handed, fairly dangerous batsman. And, of course, Vikramjit Singh at the top of the order provides good company with O'Dowd. I wouldn't necessarily say they're as explosive as Azam and Rizwan for Pakistan, but they can provide some thrills quite clearly, and it will be interesting to see how they perform. They also could cause a bit of a shock against teams like maybe South Africa, perhaps, or even Zimbabwe in their group, who I will come to. And so there will be no shortages of some very interesting games here to be played. And finally, we come, of course, to Zimbabwe, who are ranked 11th in the world and who have had an excellent run of form. From their last 10 games, they've only lost 2, including that loss to West Indies in the playoffs, which was rendered academic, and they are in the tournament proper. And of course, they couldn't play at last year's World Cup because of a suspension, but have made it for the first time into the 2020 World Cup in their history at the expense of Scotland, of course, winning against them in their last match. And over the years, Zimbabwe have been a team, as many of us will know, which have provided many terrific players and great moments in limited overs cricket. Obviously, they became a test nation on the back of some very impressive ODI performances in World Cups gone by. And of course, with the political situation over in there in the 90s and the 2000s, things weren't exactly rosy in the breadbasket of Africa, but things have started to recover a little bit, and the team's still producing some good players. A few old players have come back, and of course, in Craig Irvine, they have a stalwart leading their team who has been there, seen it all. There will, of course, be no Brendan Taylor, whose international career is, of course, over, but Irvine will be a mainstay, as will Sean Williams, who was the Test captain of Zimbabwe. And, of course, Craig Irvine is the brother of Sean Irvine, who many people know as someone who was earmarked as a prospect for Zimbabwe, who could have had an international career, but opted instead to play first-class cricket with Hampshire in the hopes of maybe earning an England qualification, which sadly, sadly he wasn't picked to play for England, but he did enjoy a really fulfilling first-class career. Certainly regarded as more talented than his younger brother Craig, but Craig is still very much a part of the Zimbabwean picture, as is, of course, Sikandar Raza, their brilliant all-rounder, born in Pakistan, educated in Scotland at Caledonian University, and he has, of course, been billed as the informed player in the world before the tournament. Simply put, his form in Zimbabwe's last few matches prior to these playoffs has been magnificent. The highest score in the first group stage, including that magnificent innings of 82 or 48 against Ireland. And of course, his 3 wickets against the West Indies with his off spin were also useful, albeit in a losing cause. I mentioned Irvine, Williams, and Raza, and also Blessing Muzarabani, their 6'8" seamer, who can certainly bring it down from a very, very high height and with an angle. He could prove to be a trump card, and it will be interesting to see how well he does in these Super 12 stages. And now, just going back to the of course, to the group stages, we find that, of course, it begins with India and Pakistan playing at the MCG. Bangladesh will be up against the Netherlands at the Bellerive Oval in Hobart. An African derby at that same day in Hobart between South Africa and Zimbabwe. So 2 games in Tasmania. I'm sure the locals will be looking forward to that. Bangladesh and South Africa will be another feisty clash. India versus the Netherlands, Pakistan, Zimbabwe. A lot of clashes in the middle, where the lesser heralded teams could potentially hold sway. India versus South Africa at the Perth Stadium in Perth will be interesting. Of course, cricket in Perth used to be played at the Western Australia Cricket Association ground, otherwise known as the WACA, but sadly that is no longer the case. Everything has been moved to the Perth Stadium. Other key matches could very well be the Bangladesh-Pakistan clash, always a feisty clash between 2 nations on either side of India. Pakistan versus South Africa will also look to be a really, really, really dicey clash. Both teams will look to set the record straight. And of course, when we go to the knockout stages, the top 2 teams in each group will qualify for the semi-finals. The first semi-final being played at the SCG, the Sydney Cricket Ground, on the 9th of November. The 10th of November will see the second semi-final at the Adelaide Oval. And the final, of course, will be played between the winners of both semi-finals at the much heralded Melbourne Cricket Ground. So, obviously, T20 cricket, as I've said, has the potential to provide many exciting clashes. It's a wonderful version of the game to follow. And we will look on Hanno's Coach Corner to try and provide you watch-alongs of some of the games. Most probably, as I've said, the evening games, because they will at least be on at a time more amenable or agreeable to our viewers in the UK and in South Africa. And if we have some viewers watching in America, we can certainly, look to try and do something, but we will see. But keep tuned to Coach's Corner. We will provide you some coverage of this, and Hanno and I will be here to offer some insights and analysis. And of course, if there are any more of you in the chat who have predictions, I would love to hear what some of you will have to say. So, yeah, wonderful to see that, Ola. You played some cricket as a child. Not really played much, of course, in Nigeria. You're absolutely right. But, it's, of course, played in Kenya. And I see KFC Delivery has got some predictions coming in. So, yeah, the first round, of course, ends at South Africa versus Zimbabwe, and KFC has predictions in. If we take a look at, the first group, let's take a look there. Yeah, KFC Delivery has New Zealand beating Australia by 27 runs, and England should be beating Afghanistan by 8 wickets easily. And on Sunday, that could very well be washed out. So we will be looking, of course, to take a look at some of the matches. But one thing which I will ask you to do is, obviously, we have so many matches to talk about, and we will possibly get some predictions on the day as the matches are being played. But one thing which I will ask for some of you is, from these groups, who do you think will qualify for the semi-finals? And I will look to obviously get some of your views right now. For me, from Group 1, I cannot look beyond Australia and England to qualify, because they definitely look to be, the strongest of the teams in that group, and they will definitely look to do justice to their status as being the among the top 3 teams in the world right now. And from Group 2, it could very well be that India and South Africa do in fact qualify as predicted. But the beauty, of course, is that we cannot look beyond Pakistan, and any shock result could very well have a huge seismic effect on the group permutation. So we definitely cannot look beyond some of these lesser nations to qualify and cause some problems. So my predictions: Australia and England from Group One, and of course, from Group One, Australia should win that group because they have home advantage and the condition will be in their favour, with England to qualify as runners-up. And I predict that India and South Africa will qualify from Group Two, with India as group winners. So what that means is that when it comes to the semi-finals, of course, that will, of course, be determined as the group takes shape. We are not too sure how the permutations will work, but we will start by these predictions, who you guys think will qualify. And then, of course, as we start coverage of the games, we will definitely look to go forward with that. So obviously the stream has been a little bit difficult, and it's not been easy for me to do this on my own, but I'm really glad to be a part of something different on Hanno's channel. Obviously, he and I do share an interest in cricket, and it'll be wonderful to see more and more people coming into the chat. Throughout this tournament, we will certainly look to do some watch-alongs for you and provide you some in-depth coverage of these games and take a look and see how everything will work out. If possible, we can try to do some of the early afternoon games, except that it might not be at a very convenient time for our friends in the UK and in South Africa. Of course, if you're watching in America, it'll be at midnight Eastern time and 9 o'clock Pacific time, with the other times in between. So we could possibly consider that, but we will see how that goes. Until then, there's nothing much else to say. So if we have any more predictions, I'd like you all to tell me who your semi-finalists will be. That is, which 4 teams will qualify from both groups. And I will stay on for another 5 minutes and talk a bit more. And hopefully I can get a few more of your comments on some questions you might have on the tournament proper, and tell me some of your cricketing stories. I know that Olaf has spoken about playing cricket when he was much younger. Me, I started really getting into the game when I was about, I think, 13 or 14. Started off as a bit of a pace bowler, but then ended up bowling some left-arm spin. Batting, not very spectacular. Can hit the ball, but not really, batsman on whom you can depend. Very, very deep in the lower order, so I could perhaps hit a few. And Hanno would come back in, and I want to see if he's given his predictions right now. So apparently Hanno has a bit of an antipathy towards England. He's predicted that Australia and New Zealand could qualify, and I'm not too sure he has that much faith in his native South Africa to do very well, because he has India and Pakistan qualifying. So it's clear to see that he believes in the ability of New Zealand and Pakistan to cause a few shocks here and there. And maybe if you can come on before we end the stream, Hannah, you can tell me why you believe that Pakistan and New Zealand could qualify. I'd like to hear it from your mouth, definitely. And of course, I will be on for another few minutes, of course. Please keep chatting and talking about anything you want to talk about regarding cricket. If any of you are big fans, any favorite players, of course, Craig mentioned that Brian Lara was his all-time favorite. Me, obviously, growing up, I did like Sachin Tendulkar, who played quite often for India, as did Mohammad Azharuddin. Of course, he was implicated in that match-fixing scandal and ended up being banned for life, which was a dreadful shame. He ended up having his career ended just before he was supposed to play his 100th test for India. And it looks as though Hanno is not able to come and see us. That's perfectly okay. But hopefully on the next stream, we will talk to him in depth about it. And anyone else in the chat got any observations? Looks as though there aren't too very many here. So I guess we'll probably end it in the next few seconds. But I just want to say thank you all for staying on. And things have not looked very easy, obviously, with Hanno's Wi-Fi issues. But at least we're able to bring you something. And I hope that once we do continue with our coverage, it will be a lot more in depth with more analysis as such. And we will definitely, as I've said, look to provide you with some watch alongs for some of these games in great detail, especially with regard to the bowling and the batting and so forth, and also try to explain, in the event of a rain delay, what will potentially happen with the Duckworth-Lewis method that is being used to revise certain targets if matches will be shortened due to rain. And as KFC Delivery has mentioned, rain has been forecasted for quite a few games. But that's pretty much it from me. Until then, I will look to see all of you, as many of you as possible, joining in, and we will have some streams of the cricket ready for you and waiting for you to enjoy. And I will obviously look to provide you with some commentary and analysis and so forth. And it will be interesting. And hopefully, if you join in and if you're able to watch it from wherever you are, I'm sure back in the UK, the games will be screened on Sky Sports, Super Sport in South Africa, or wherever you are watching in the world, wherever you get your cricket. Do not hesitate to tune in and have a chat. And we will make sure that we engage you. And maybe we could even bring you on for some of your thoughts on the game and in question, and some thoughts on the sport, your own interests, your own memories. And we will look forward to doing that. But for now, it's time for me to bid you all adieu. Let me say thank you all for coming in. Final reminder, do please subscribe to Coach's Corner with Hanno Trollope. Terrific channel where he provides great content and analysis of different sports, whether it's football or WWE wrestling, basketball as well. He clearly enjoys his sport, and I'm really delighted to see that he's added cricket into the mix. So this will be interesting to follow, and I'm really glad that he's asked me to come and join him. And also, don't hesitate to follow him on Twitter. His Twitter handle, I will give it to you right now. It is, of course, Hanno. Let me take a look and see. Yeah, I will give him. Yeah, his Twitter ID is, of course, at the rate of Hanno708 30030. That is his Twitter ID. Once again, Hotel Alpha November Oscar 708 30030. And of course, if you want to follow him on Instagram, it is Hanno_coach_corner. You can get some updates on his channel, so forth. And do once again, of course, please come onto this channel, listen to him speak. A really young lad who loves his sport, knows his sport well, and it will be good to for you to interact with him. And also, if you see me on his streams, you can interact with me, and definitely we will love to have you on. Until then, thank you all for watching. Thank you for joining in. Sorry for the sort of winged nature of this stream, but things have taken their course, as it were. And until next time, have a good night. Have a good rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. Peace to all. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy your weekend. And I am out.